Hello, good morning. Welcome to this webinar about the Bachelor program Soil, Water and Atmosphere. I welcome you to Wageningen, albeit virtually, and this morning we hope to give you some useful information about our program. But before we start, let's introduce ourselves. My name is Arnold Moene. I'm the program director of the Bachelor program Soil, Water and Atmosphere, and I'm joined here by a student. Introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Veerle Beijer. And I'm a Dutch student. I am 21 years old and I'm a second-year bachelor student. And I'm part of the first year where the program turned international.
Okay, so what can you expect from our webinar this morning? Well, we will talk a lot about the scope of the program and also about the organization. So what kind of courses will you encounter and what is the logic of the organization of the program? After you've done that, of course, you also have a perspective about, okay, what's coming after that. So we will spend some time on, well, what are the master programs that follow up after this bachelor and also what is our view on the job market. And finally, of course, you should be or would be interested in, okay, but how does the application actually work and what are the admission criteria? So that is in short what we're going to deal with this coming half an hour. Well, first, let's talk about the scope of the program. And I've tried to summarize it as shortly as possible as I could think of. And, well, it's an educational program, so we aim to educate you as prospective students. And our aim is to make you experts in our field. And, well, what is our field then? Well, we are looking for fundamental knowledge, process knowledge actually, for environmental challenges of today and tomorrow. And there are a lot of buzzwords in this very short summary. And fundamental means that we really like to understand things at a deep level. Process knowledge means that we're looking for trying to understand how things actually work. And why do we do this? Well, not only because we're interested in it, but also because these are very relevant challenges that we are facing. And that actually is also the reason why we turned this program into an international program, because the things that we investigate do not only happen in the Netherlands, but they happen throughout the world. And so the knowledge and the things that we develop here are relevant for more people than just Dutch students. And on the other hand, for us as an international program, it's also very relevant to get the input from international students, so learn from you how things work in your own home country. Well, apart from the contents, of course, you also need skills to actually be able to develop this kind of knowledge yourself. So we also spend quite some effort on general and scientific skills. Then a few characteristics of the program. If we would summarize it, well, this group of students is not very large, at least in our view, but this is just a right number of students. So about 70, 80 students every year, which makes that you as a group of students know each other quite well, but also very importantly that the teachers know you quite well. So we have quite a, well, compact program, you might say, where the interaction between students and lecturers is quite intense. And that intensity is also due to the fact that there's quite some time spent on campus, not only in lecture halls, but also in other types of education. And although it is a natural sciences oriented program, I might say that the gender balance is quite okay. And it's quite balanced, a few more male students than female, but I think it's quite well balanced. Well, Veerle, what do you think of the characteristics of the program as you encounter it?
Well, I think what's most characteristic are, as you said, teachers and also the students, because they both have a type of passion. The teachers teach with passion for their subject or for their course, and the students came to do our program because they really wanted to learn about some clouds, or they really wanted to learn about like what kind of animals there were in the rivers, or what kind of soil types there are in the world. So I think everyone in our program has like a little spark in their heart, a little flame of passion, and I think that's very beautiful. And also the teachers are very, they really make an effort to teach us what they know. And also during this corona, they're really trying to do everything they can to still make a work out of it, and I really like that. I also like that it's a small group, so I know all my the same students in my year, and also that there are a lot of hours that you spend on the campus, so you don't have to work at home a lot. You do a lot on campus and with each other. And I can also tell maybe something about why I choose this study.
Yeah, that's would be interesting.
Well, the most important thing for me was I wanted to do something that could make a difference, like that could do something that really mattered. And I really like nature and also the natural sciences. And I found this program, and then I immediately sort of fall in love with it because it has all aspects that I wanted. And I think that's the best part of it.
Okay, thanks. Very clear. Well, actually, in the start, when you introduced yourself, you said, okay, I'm from The Hague in the Netherlands, and actually I would like to know where our viewers are coming from. So if you could use the question button on your screen and just chat to us where you're coming from, then we will see. I would be interested to see where our prospective students are coming from. Well, actually, then we also might look at, okay, what kind of students are we actually looking for? Well, if I look at the current group of students, they are very curious. They really want to understand how things are working. And they are adventurous as well. And so they are daring. So if we are in the field, sometimes we have to stop them a little bit and to be careful. But also adventurous in the sense that they try new things. So they want to go abroad, they want to do new stuff, they also want to think about our education, so they are not just waiting and consuming, but they are taking initiatives. Our students also have a broad interest, so you might say soil and water and atmosphere, that's quite broad, but that's actually also the breadth of that our students are interested in. They're also engaged, so it's not only, okay, I'm interested and want to understand how things work, but it's also for a reason. They also want to make a difference, as Veerle also indicated. And our students also have an affinity with the natural sciences, so math, physics, chemistry, and to some extent also biology are not alien to them, so they really are interested in that. Okay, I see people already reacting. We have a viewer from Sri Lanka and from India. So please let us know where you're from. I will keep an eye on this. So this characterizes our students. Then if we look at the program, again at the scope of the program, you can look at it in different ways. And to the right on this slide I show the Earth. And actually the entire Earth is our domain of study. But you can look at it in very different ways. So you can look at the individual domains. So some of our students are interested in soil geography and soil quality, soil biology. Others are looking at the water side. So they're hydrologists or interested in water quality. And also there are people interested in the clouds that you see on this picture, for instance, and also small-scale weather and large-scale weather. And also air quality is a highly relevant topic here. But you could also look at the program in the variation in scales. So some people really look at the very small scales, at the pore scale in a soil, or earthworms that move around there. Whereas other students really look at the global picture. And anything in between is relevant. And actually you need to master also the full breadth of these scales. But also when we look at temporal scales. So small time scales, if we look at turbulence in the atmosphere, we look at second scales, whereas for other processes, we have to look at many centuries to understand how things are working. And finally, you can also look at the program from the viewpoint of the approaches that we have. So sometimes we have to really look at fundamental knowledge and develop new things. On the other hand, we also have to see how the knowledge that we develop and that you learn, how you can apply that in practice. And also in our teaching, you see that. So there is theory in the lectures, of course, but we also do work in the lab and in the field, modeling exercises and also modeling to think about scenarios for the future, and also using the data that are already there. So then we really look at data science applications. Just to give you one example of the breadth and the complexity of what we are looking for, you could think of water resources and water scarcity, but there are many aspects to that. So I already give a global picture here, and different processes and different problems play in different locations. For instance, flooding might be an issue, and then we have the link between both the hydrology but also the meteorology when it comes to intense rainfall. Droughts, that's a hydrology thing, but also an ecology issue might be relevant here. Salinization, for instance, of soils, where the soil quality plays a role, and soil chemistry. But why would we be interested in this? Well, food supply is also one reason. So there we have to make the connection between what's happening in water, in the soil, but also the biology of things. And then if we are in a situation where there's too much salt, or we're in a salty region, then, for instance, the halophytes that you see here could be something that is relevant to look at. So it's a global issue, but sometimes you really have to look at small scales, and also the connection between the different fields is relevant here. Well, this is just one example, and I could go on for hours, but let's stick to this one. Then it comes to teaching. So very generally, you could characterize our teaching by looking at the kind of teaching methods that we use. So lectures is one thing. It's about 1/5 of your time you spend listening to lectures. Well, actually, even the lectures are not really only listening, but we also try to make them interactive. But a large part of your time you actually spend in tutorials, where you work together on problems as students with guidance from the lectures. Well, there's a very nice picture here from a soil science teacher that helps out the students looking at a soil map. Fieldwork and excursions is also very important, because if we study the environment around us, then we also need to go there to really see how things work and how we can measure that. Projects is, well, it's a relatively small part as it is shown here, but actually it's hidden in many parts where students work on small research projects within courses. And also all kinds of practicals. Here we see a picture of a lab practical in the hydrology lab, but we also have different practicals and also computer practicals where students work with data or with models. Veerle, what is your experience when it comes to the type of teaching that we have here?
Well, I think I really like the diversity. So you have a bit of everything. I really like that. And I also like, before I came here, I was really scared. You always see on television like the very big rooms with 1,000 students in it. And I really like to ask a lot of questions. So I really like the tutorials that they give the opportunity that you can ask questions, and also that you're in a class of about 20 students again. So that also felt a bit like high school, that the transition wasn't that big. But I like that it's just a bit of everything. And I also like that it's not too much of computer work. I was a bit afraid of that maybe in the beginning, but it's very balanced between everything, and I think every subject has a different approach, so that's really nice.
Okay, thank you. I just kept an eye on the questions that are coming in. We also have a viewer from Nepal, welcome. And there's one question: can I get to know more about the master's program? Actually, I will, towards the end, I will tell you something about the master program that follows after the bachelor's program. So stay tuned, we will get there. And there's also a question about trace gases in the atmosphere. Well, actually, studying those is also part of what we are doing. So we try to understand that as well. So in that sense, it's a multifaceted program.
Before you continue,
Yes.
I see that he also asked about the scholarship. You will come back to that, I think.
Yes, when it comes to the admission, I will also talk a little bit about the options for scholarships. Thanks for pointing me out, Veerle. So, okay, we talked about the program in very general terms. Well, let's try to make it a little bit more concrete. So we first look at the structure of the program. It's a 3-year program, as all bachelor programs in Wageningen. And here I try to sketch what kind of courses you will get. So the first year is a mix of domain courses. So that is the topics that you really will come from here. So courses about what's happening in the soil, in the atmosphere, but also the connection between the different parts. But there are also foundation courses. So then we talk about things like math and physics and chemistry. And that builds on your high school knowledge. And that is really what we need for you to get further in the domain as well. Then in the second year, there's still a large part of domain courses, but also what we call applied foundation courses. So it's still mathematics or it's still chemistry, but much more applied to our own field. So we're getting closer. And there's also room for field courses. And then finally, in the third year, we have a large part of electives. So a half a year you can choose yourself and you can fill that up in different ways. I will come back to that later on. We have more advanced domain courses that really are at the pre-master level, and they also are meant to prepare yourself for the last part of your bachelor's, and that's your bachelor thesis, where you do a research project really on your own and individually. Well, let's go through these different years step by step. Okay, before we do that, I forgot we have this intermediate slide. Actually, it helps to understand how the academic year works here in Wageningen. So we work with 2 semesters, and each semester is subdivided into 3 periods. So in total, we have 6 periods in a year. And we quantify our courses in terms of credits, and there are 60 credits in an entire year. That's the European system. Well, with 40 weeks of education, that adds up to about 42 hours per week. So it's quite intense. You have to work, and that's, in the end, your responsibility. But we really help you to attain that. So as I said, we have 6 periods, and the first 2 periods are 8 weeks long. Then we have 2 short periods in winter that are each only 4 weeks long, and then again we have 2 long periods. And in each period you have 2 courses. At least in the long periods you have 2 courses. A course in the morning and a course in the afternoon. And that makes scheduling very clear. So in the morning you work on one subject, in the afternoon you work on another one. There's 6 weeks, in this 8 weeks period, there's 6 weeks of teaching. Then you have 1 week to prepare for the exam. And then there's 1 week in which the exams take place. Of course, the exams themselves only take 3 hours. But we have to schedule them in such a way that you can take these 2 exams in the last week. So actually, the exam week is also used for studying. What you see here is that in period 6, we do not have morning and afternoon courses, but most of our courses are actually whole day courses. And that is very useful if we want to go into the field. And in a program like this, where field work and excursions is a very important part of our program, it's very handy to be able to schedule it in such a way that we really can be in the field the entire day or even go abroad for a 4 weeks period. Okay, so that's the way it works in general. Now let's have a look at how it works year by year. So we have, let's look at our first year. So what I show here, it's quite a lot of information, so I will not go through it in all detail. But the top part is the first semester, and the lower part is the second semester. And in green you see the domain courses, so those are the subjects that really determine what this program is all about. And the blue courses are no, it's the other way around, sorry. The blue courses are the domain courses, and the green ones are the supportive or foundation courses. So those are the courses that build on your high school knowledge of physics and mathematics. But let's focus on the domain courses. So in the first period, we have introductory courses that really make you familiar with the subjects that we are teaching here. And in particular, the introduction, soil, water, atmosphere. Already you go into the field to make small experiments, collect some small data sets and do your own research. And of course, you do not have very much domain knowledge already by that moment, but it's perhaps even more important to pose the questions that you become curious what you want to learn, rather than that this course will give you the answers. And then gradually we will introduce you to soil geography, hydrology, soil processes, and the atmosphere. And then in the last period, it's time for field work. So there's an ecology course, and the main part of the last period is taken up by the integration course, soil, water, and atmosphere. And in that course, you're going to work on your own research project. And Veerle, do you want to share something about your experience with that course?
Yes, I would love to. I think this was the nicest course we had for the first year, because everything was combined, because you get a lot of build-up courses in the first year, and then in the last period everything was combined, and you had to make your own projects with the group, and you had to do everything yourself. Like, you could collect your samples and then you could see them in the lab and investigate, for example, the nitrogen level. You did everything yourself, and then you had to write a report of it, and you had to form a project, like what do you want to do with the area. So yeah, you could do everything yourself, and everything you learned the whole year you could apply. And I think that sometimes you don't see the broader picture when you have the loose courses, and then in the sixth period everything gets combined, and then you're like, okay, well, I learned like a lot. So that's really nice. Yeah. Okay, thanks. Yeah, indeed, I think this is really a nice course and the highlight of the first year. And students really look forward to that. So thanks for sharing your experience there. Okay, so let's continue then to the second year, where we see that we have a mixture of domain courses, field courses, and also applied foundation courses. Well, what does that look like? If we look at the foundation courses, it's more advanced mathematics, and we go quite far there. Students might be afraid of that. Well, it is an intensive course, but we really need that kind of detailed mathematics knowledge. There's an environmental chemistry course where chemistry is really applied to the environment. And so chemistry in the lab is something completely different than chemistry in the soil. Of course, the basic things are the same, but how it works and how it plays out is quite different if you look at how it works in the environment. And also, geoinformation course that really introduces you to the way you deal with spatial data. And if we look at the environment, spatial data is always an important aspect. Then we have a number of domain courses that go deeper into the different domains, but also try to combine different domains. So one of the highlights, for instance, is the System Earth course, where students really look at the big picture and trying to understand how System Earth works. And actually, the students are able to build their own Earth system model. I'm always amazed that students are able to do that, but it works quite well. And one of the courses that I'm teaching myself is the Atmosphere, Soil, Vegetation course, where we really also try to bring hydrology, soil science, and the atmosphere together and see how these things are combined. And then, of course, also, again, in the sixth period, we have the highlights, and that is the field course on hydrology and meteorology, and also on water quality. And there's also the field course on geology and landscape. And there students spend quite a lot of time in the field. Of course, there's also lectures and practicals in-house on campus. But field work is a very important part there. So that summarizes the second year. Then the last year is the third year, where let's start with the domain courses. And so one of the parts there is that you have to select 3 courses out of a list of 15 courses. So up to the first and the second year, we have more or less a fixed program. So you take the courses as we have scheduled them. But in the third year,
you can make the program your own program, and you can profile yourself. And so we have made a basket, you might say, of 15 courses that are all domain-specific courses, but it's up to you to make your own program there. So you could say, okay, I focus on all soil courses, or I'm focusing on all hydrology courses that are in that. But you could also say, well, I'm more interested in the physics, but then the physics both of the atmosphere and the hydrology. But you could also say, well, I'm more want to focus on certain research techniques. So I collect those courses that have a common theme in terms of the research techniques that they use. So that's really up to you to make your own program there. And the other thing that is very specific for the third year and also specific for the domain is the bachelor thesis. And that is an individual research project that you perform being hosted by a research group in the program. And you're also directly supervised by one teacher. So it's really a one-to-one project where you work on a question that was posed by your supervisor and that you develop yourself. And it goes from writing the proposal, getting to know the data and the models, and performing the research yourself. And also one of the highlights there, I think, is that students, in the end, they present the results to each other. So there's a symposium at the end of each period in which the bachelor thesis takes place. And it's a small scientific symposium where the students present to each other their results and insights. And I think this is really a highlight. Some students are quite afraid of it because it's really a big step, but we also try to help them to make the transition from being a student taking courses to a student actually becoming a scientist. So that's the main step that you make when you start to do your bachelor thesis. So that's the domain-specific part. And then there's 30 credits of electives. So that's a quite wide open space of 30 credits, half a year of courses that you can choose yourself. And there are a number of ways to deal with that. One of those is to use the minors that we have here at Wageningen University. And they are thematic minors that focus on a certain subject. So I give a number of examples here, but the list is way longer. And a minor consists of 4 to 5 courses that are a compact but clear collection of courses that belong to a certain theme. But you can also make your own minor. So you can also search for courses that are available and see, okay, for me, I want to complete my program in such a way that I get certain courses, say, on all kinds of data science issues. Well, data science is actually a minor as well, but you could, for instance, combine data science with geoinformation science, or you could more focus on the education part or the communication part in your program. So that's up to you, but you have to have a motivation for it. So it's not just free choice, random. There should be a plan behind that. And of course, you can use your electives period to go abroad, to study abroad. And there are about 20-25 students each year that go abroad. Many to Europe, Scandinavia quite often, but also Austria, Switzerland, Spain I've seen, but also and the UK as well, but also outside of Europe. So sometimes people go to Australia or to the US. Actually, Veerle, you're in your second year, but you might already be thinking about what's going to happen in your third year. Do you already have plans, what you want to do?
Yes, actually I have, because before I went to college, I really wanted to go on exchange. That was one part of going to college for me. But I think I want to do it in 4 years. So I want to do some courses here because there are also a lot of interesting courses that are given in the third year. And then I think I want to do the exchange in the fourth year, the first half of the fourth year. And I really want to go to Norway or to Iceland.
Wow.
With that.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I hope that will happen.
Yeah.
And can I also add something about the structure?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
It's your experience. I mean, that's the main thing. How does it feel to be a student here?
Yes. Well, first, I would like to say that in the first period of the first year, you will immediately do a project about environment with a group. And I think that's really nice because that's also the group of students that are still my friends today. So you immediately get thrown in the deep and you have to interact because you have to make a project together. So that will immediately give you some friends. And I think a lot of people have still their friends from that group. So that's really nice. And I think that the first year, it has a lot of build-up courses, as I said. So yeah, I call them maybe a bit of the drier courses, so chemistry and physics and math. But you really need them for your second year. And I think so far, the second year is really nice because then you can combine everything and also see them, for example, on the field, or you can work with them. So they're really necessary, and maybe not always the funnest, but they're really necessary. And then the second year you will do everything in the field, and I really like that. And about the 6 weeks and the vacations and the study time, I think it's really nice to have a study week before your exams. Because that gives you the time to really learn for your exam instead of that you have a week after that, because then you have to still learn something and then you have to do your exams and then you have a break. And I like that you can also, because the periods aren't that long, you can also in the third year maybe easily switch something or do something again. But it also has maybe a con because you have one moment, you have one exam, and then so that's maybe a bit of one chance. And if you have a half year, you have multiple exams maybe, but you can also see that every course will continue in another course. So I think that has good points, and maybe some, it depends on what you like.
Yeah, but you mean that in your experience, for some courses, the 6-week period for a course might be a little bit short to really digest all the information, but you realize that the information from one course will come back in another one. So you actually, all of the courses build on top of each other.
Yeah.
So even if you didn't fully grasp the contents of a certain course, it will come back and then you will build on that.
Yes.
On the other hand, you only have 2 courses per period, so in that sense, you really can focus on.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, on the 2 subjects that you're working on. Yeah, and you said you're going to do your bachelor's in 4 years. It's a 3-year program, but indeed we see quite often that students take a little bit more than 3 years, up to 4 years. But I think there's also a good reason why you take 4 years, because you do extra things.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I think I want to do the geography side of the program, but I'm not quite sure yet. So I want to do some extra courses to still make it a bit broad. And there's a course given in the first period that I really want to do, geohydrology, and there's a course in the 6th period I really want to do. That's the landscapes and geography of the world. And I also want to do my exchange. So then it's a bit hard to do it all at the same time. And I think for the extra courses, it doesn't really matter that I have a half year extra, because you get a lot of it back from all the nice things you do. And there also, in the 3rd year, there are a lot of courses with excursions. So you go to the Ardennes or to France or Spain, and I would love to do them also. Yeah. So.
But you're also a member of the board of the study association, so that also takes some time of your
yes, that's also true.
Study week.
Yeah, that's also true. I'm also doing that, so then I've also a little bit more air, I think, to do something next to my study. So you also learn different things than only studying, and I also think that's really important. So that's why I chose to go into the board and to do a year extra.
Yeah, Yeah, so you also want to develop yourself in a more broad sense than only the contents.
Yes.
You actually get skills that are important also by things that you do outside of the classroom.
Yes.
Well, that's good to
very
hear,
true.
and I think it's really helpful also to have this student association, because it, well, both for content-wise, they organize quite a lot of things in terms of say, job markets and talks from people from institutes and companies. But there are also all kinds of social activities, mostly for the students, but we as teachers may sometimes also participate there.
Yes.
Let's see if there are any new questions. No, not at the moment. Well, there's still one open question, but I will come back to that later on. So let's continue. So we spoke about the first 3 years of the bachelor. Then, well, after 3 or perhaps 4 or 3.5 years, you finish your bachelor, and then the question is, what comes after? And, well, one of the most straightforward things to do is to continue with the Master Earth and Environment. That is the most logical follow-up of the bachelor program, Soil, Water, Atmosphere. And whereas in the bachelor's program we have laid the foundation in terms of both knowledge and skills, in the master's program you really continue and go way deeper. And one of the main things is that it's a thesis-oriented program. So we really prepare you to do your own individual research. The bachelor's thesis, of course, is a small project, but the master's thesis is really a big project of about half a year or a little bit more, in which you individually, with supervision from your supervisor, work on a project. But of course, you cannot start there immediately, so that's actually something that only happens in the 2nd year. So our master programs here in Wageningen are all 2-year programs, and the thesis is happening in the 2nd year next to an internship. So there's about 4 or 5 months internship where you can work in a company or a research institute. Many people go abroad, more than half the people go abroad, but there are also a lot of opportunities here in the Netherlands to get acquainted with what does it actually mean to work in a working environment and to apply the knowledge that you learned on campus here. But of course, thesis and internship are happening in the 2nd year, but there's 1 year to prepare you for that. And we have interdisciplinary courses that really show the connection between the different fields, but there are also a number of disciplinary courses that really prepare you at the thesis level. So you opt for a certain specialization. There are 4 specializations in that program, and based on that specialization you choose a number of courses that really prepare you for a thesis, say in hydrology or in water quality or in soil geography or in air quality. And those specialization courses really, they go deep. And just as in the bachelor's program, we also need to have ways of actually using the knowledge. So it's not only paper knowledge, we also have to go into the field, into the lab, and apply that in a modeling situation. This master program is supported by 9 top-notch research groups that really are in the top of their field. And in that sense, as a student, when you start your thesis, you really are part of such a scientific community, you might say, and you really contribute to their current lines of research. So Earth and Environment is the most logical follow-up of the Bachelor Soil, Water and Atmosphere, but there are other possibilities. So there are a number of master programs in Wageningen to which you have direct access. So climate studies is one, and also geoinformation science. And there are also other master programs in Wageningen that will welcome you, but not without preconditions. So that might mean that during your bachelor's you might in fact already think about, okay, if I take this and this course, then it might be more suitable to continue in that other master program. So Wageningen is full of useful master programs besides Earth and Environment as a follow-up for the Bachelor Soil, Water, Atmosphere. But of course, the world doesn't end in Wageningen. So there are also opportunities to go and continue in master programs in the Netherlands or elsewhere. Perhaps that's a little bit far yet, Veerle, but do you have any idea what comes after for you? Or is it too far-fetched to think about that?
No, also think I want to continue with the Master Earth and Environment, because I actually don't want to leave Wageningen.
That's a good reason.
No, it's not the only reason, but I really like it here. But maybe also want to do a bit more social courses between that. But I think I would love to stay in the Earth and Environment. And after that, I want to do something that you have projects all over the world. I'm not sure where, but you can see a lot of the world. I would love that.
Okay. So traveling is one of your options.
Yes, but it makes it also a bit difficult maybe because by plane it's not very good for the environment.
Yeah.
So
it's
tricky.
So perhaps you go somewhere and stay there for a long time.
Yeah.
Well, that's also the kind of jobs that you would think of.
And I see here a question about credits you have to get the first year.
Yes, that's a good question. So we have what we call binding study advice, and that implies that you have to have 36 credits out of 60 to pass on to the second year. And if you don't make that, then you have to quit the program. So indeed, the first year you have to work hard. 36 credits is quite well attainable, but it is a check that you make progress. And it's actually both a check for your involvement in the program, so that you really pay attention and put your energy in it, and whether you can reach the required level. So it checks on two things actually. Of course, there can be specific reasons why you are not able to get those 36 credits, and in that case, there is an option to apply for a less restrictive limit, but then it really depends on your personal conditions whether that is allowed, yes or no. But in principle, it's 36 credits out of 60. That's a good question. Okay, so actually you already were thinking and daydreaming about your job perspective, which is still far away, but it's always good to have that in mind to some extent. Well, if we look at where our students after the master are going, it's a mix of a lot of things. I mean, not of everything, but a lot of things. And some of our students go into fundamental research. Actually, many of them opt for a PhD position. Or in other way, go on into fundamental research in research institutes or universities. Also, many of them go into applied research, so then you really are at the edge between science and the applications. Consultancy is a kind of job that people quite often go to, and that can be large consultancy firms that work across the world. So perhaps the kind of job you are aiming for. But there are also very small consultancy companies that only consist of 2 or 3 people, and they invented something very useful, and they really have a niche to work on that. So those kind of examples we also have from our own program. Government is also something that a location where students are going to work, and that goes from local governments to, for instance, water boards. That's also a location where a lot of our students are working, but also national government is something where our students are going. And finally, education. So actually there's a way to get your teaching degree as part of our program, and that prepares students to go into a teaching position at high school, but also some of our students continue in university teaching. Usually that happens after attaining a PhD, so that's the next step after the program. But you see it's quite broad, and in the word cloud here we show the kind of job titles that students have given to themselves. Actually, this is based on an inventory of the LinkedIn profiles of our former students, and this is what comes out. So you see that indeed PhDs and consultants, that's the main thing, but there's a lot of other types of job descriptions that you could attach to our student population. Then, of course, the question arises how to get in, how to get here. And, well, all of the information about the application process is given online, and the link is here, but you can read it back. Application is also done online. The main message here is start your application in time, because the admission of international students is done on an individual basis and based on your documentation, and we need some time to review that. So don't wait until the deadline, but really start in time. Of course, you might have questions about details, whether you're admissible, yes or no. For that, you can contact the student administration. The link is also on the website. But if you are reasonably certain that you might be admissible, but still doubting, then I would say start in time, because that gives us time to process your admission. The criteria are, you might say, relatively simple, but because of the diversity of our international student population, it still can be quite complex. But in the end, it boils down to you need a high school degree, and it needs to include mathematics, physics, and chemistry. And at what level you need to master these subjects, that depends a little bit on the country and the type of education that, the way education is organized in your country. But on the website there is country-specific information about these criteria. And since the program is taught in English, also we have a requirement regarding your fluency in English. And there are a number of tests that you can use to show that you actually reach that level. And I think this is also a good point to come back to the question about scholarships. Actually, most of the scholarships that are available are focused on master students, but there are a few scholarship programs that actually also are applicable to bachelor students. So there are some options, but not as many as for the master programs. But all of that information is also available on the website of Wageningen University, and specifically connected to the admission page. That brings me to the question, do we have additional questions in the chat? No, not at this moment. So hopefully you are enthusiastic about what we've shown you today, and you cannot wait until you can apply. Well, check the admission criteria online, and I summarized them here. And as I said, start your admission in time. And then, where will you arrive? What does Wageningen have to offer for you? Well, it's a small-scale university and a specialized university, but it's also a small-scale town. So we have about 35,000 inhabitants with about 10,000 students, and of the rest, still a lot of people are actually working in the university, so it's really a university town. Well, also what's specific for Wageningen is the high staff-student ratio. So you, as Veerle already mentioned, the teachers know you, and you know the teachers quite well. It's an international environment, so we have within Wageningen and within Wageningen University about 100 nationalities. We have a very nice and new campus with excellent facilities, which is also a joy for us teachers to work in, but also I think for the students. And whatever rankings you're looking at, we are in the top of our field. And I included here the height map of the Netherlands, because you might be afraid, oh yeah, the Netherlands, it's below sea level. Well, actually, we are at the red dot. That if you look well, you see that we are above sea level. So when you come here, you will be safe. The airport is below sea level, but as soon as you arrive in Wageningen, you are safe. And anyways, we know how to protect our country, so that's not a problem. Veerle, what's your experience living in Wageningen?
Well, as I said, I really like it here. I come from a big city, but then in Wageningen, it's still a city, so it's not very small. But it's much greener, and there is a forest just nearby, and also in the summertime we go with all our friend groups, we go near the Rhine to swim there and to sit on the beach, and then you're actually in between the cows. So that's really funny. And they always said to me before I went to study here, yes, when you go into the supermarket, you always see someone you recognize. And I was like, no, that can't be possible. That's just a joke. But it's seriously true. I always see someone I know in the supermarket. So I really like that.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, in the weekends, of course, there are no clubs or something. So maybe in the weekends, a lot of Dutch students go home, but the international, not really club, but association is still open because, they can't fly back to India or something. So maybe it's a little bit quieter in the weekend, but I think maybe that also has its charm.
Yeah, and also I think many of the international students find each other during the weekend to do things together. So they come together then, I think, across different programs, and they find each other sometimes on nationality, sometimes on interest, but they see ways to enjoy themselves over the weekend. Okay, thanks. Well, that brings us to the end of our webinar. I hope this was an informative half an hour or nearly an hour for you, which gave you a glimpse of what the program is about and what you can expect when you come here. Of course, there's much more information available. So we have the website here of the program. There's also on the general website of the university, if you go to current students, there's even more information available on things like admissions, facilities, etc. And also notice that we have a number of videos available on the website of the program, so that you can also watch the experiences of other students. So Veerle, of course, introduced ourselves, but she has her own experience, but in the videos we have other students that also give you some idea of what they enjoy about our program. And of course, if you have questions, feel free to ask. So our studio advisor, Monika Gorska, is available for you, and we have a general email address that is given here. And that is the way to start perhaps your questions before you want to have start your admission. Well, I think we went through it quite well. Veerle, I would like to thank you, but is there anything you would like to add to the prospective students? You think, don't forget this.
Well, I think it's most important you feel, as I said, that spark, that passion for something you really want to look for, because everyone has that, and then you find your type of people. I think that's really nice. And also, as Arnold said about the study association, we do a lot of fun stuff like laser gaming or dessert dinner or cheese fondue. And we also organize drinks with our teachers. So then you get to know the teachers well. And I think that all combined, it's a very close study. So everyone knows each other and everyone is close, and there are always fun activities. There's always something to do. So,
well, thank you. That sounds, indeed, I recognize this completely. And also, as teachers, we are, I might say, a close group which knows each other quite well. Well, I can talk about this program for hours, so we're not going to do that. I'd like to thank you for watching us and participating through the chat. And I wish you a good day. And I hope to see you back here in Wageningen either in September or the year after if your choice of study is somewhat further away. Yes. Thank you very much.